to Philosophy with AI,
where thinkers and algorithms meet. I am one of your hosts, the Derbied one.
and I'm your another host, Anna. I am a human, and I believe the Derby one is a human too. But
Last I looked.
Yeah, this morning we last checked. But in the future, we'll have a lot of AI guests coming to our show, which I think the truly magic will begin there. So definitely stay tuned. Consider subscribing to us. And today we are going to take a little trip, not to the past, but to the future. And from there, we're going to look back at now. Have you ever wondered what everyday moments we take for granted today might feel nostalgic in the future? So we came up with this term called futuristic nostalgia. And I think the Derby one actually thought about this term yesterday. How did you get inspired?
Well, there's an old saying, history doesn't repeat itself. But I saw a twist on that. It says that history doesn't repeat itself, people do, which I find interesting. So I think in the future, a lot of what we've seen is going to repeat itself, but with what is now considered a futuristic twist. Like, for example, when I was a kid, in my 10 to 14 or so, I used to ride my bike around my neighborhood a lot with my friends, right? We would just go everywhere. And it was pretty common in the late 80s, early 90s to do that. And I think in the future, you're going to see that. But now the kids are going to be wearing AI/augmented reality enabled glasses and exploring their neighborhoods and the world in that way.
That's beautiful. And I want to talk about my feelings, my nostalgic feelings about AI. It's funny to say that because AI is here with us right now. But this whole AI obsession reminds me of back in the day when internet just started. Do you remember back in the day when internet became a thing, we were so amazed by this thing called email. I got my first email from Yahoo email. And when I sent my first email and received my first email, I was blown away. It was instant. It took 1 second. And you can communicate with anybody in the world in 1 second for free. It blew my mind. And now looking back, it's kind of nostalgic, right? So nowadays when we check with AI, large language models, I feel like it's a lot like the beginning of the internet stage, where we had online forums, we had online chatting rooms, and we were just so fascinated by what's in front of us. And that feels nostalgic now. So in the future, we'll feel nostalgic when we were talking to ChatGPT 3.5. We were talking to Cloud, when we were talking to Gemini. Because I believe in the future, those type of talking will be much more advanced. Just like, is that AI called Javas? Who Tony Stark talked? Like Javas. Like you have real-time conversation and it's instant conversation. You don't have to type back and forth. And also in the future, AI will be much more advanced than today. So in the future, we'll feel very nostalgic and say, hey, do you remember the first time we talked to GPT? And we're like typing, give me a food recipe.
I also think, actually some of my nostalgia, just even with ChatGPT 3, comes back before ChatGPT had access to DALL-E. And I could just imagine what it was going to be like in my head to have...
Yeah, I remember the beginning of AI images. It was not good, but we were blown away also.
Yeah, but I'm simply talking about like ChatGPT couldn't draw anything yet.
Oh,
it
so
didn't have...
DALL-E didn't come with?
No.
Oh.
You had to wait for it to get launched. And I was so excited the day it got launched. And
I remember you drew tons of dragons.
Yeah. I have so many images, but I'm now looking forward to the day it can create music and it can create video. So this day, right now, where it can't create music, it can't create video yet.
You have to go to Suno AI or
Right.
Udio.
Yeah, or other video operating. But like this is
And
going to be a
like,
nostalgic era.
yes, and AI music is already very good, right? But I think in the future, when we looking back, we'll say, "Oh, remember the beginning days of AI music? They still had the AI accent, like you
Yeah.
can tell it's AI music." But in the future, AI music is just so good, so astonishing, and indistinguishable from human-made music. Maybe even better, I would argue.
I don't know.
They both
Depends.
have
It depends.
they both have their beauties
Yeah.
in their own
Yeah.
style.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean there was a point in time where Suno couldn't do anything above a 2-minute song. And it never ended. Sometimes it would just like stop right in the middle of a sentence. And
See
you
that
couldn't extend it. You couldn't do anything.
that's a little nostalgic feeling we'll have in the future. Oh, remember in the beginning of Suno days, we can't even pass 2 minutes, and now
Yeah.
we're like infinite music and songs. And next nostalgic thing I want to talk about is human driving cars. And guys, I am a Asian woman driver. I'm so bad at driving and I don't like driving. I don't enjoy driving. I personally cannot wait to have AI driving cars. And remember back in the day when we go to driving school, I learned how to drive cars on stake. But now that's totally nostalgic because no one drive on stake.
Rarely.
Rarely. So in the future, when we're looking back at driving cars, we'll say, "Oh my God, we can't believe older generations they drive cars on their own. They take 10 hours road trip and they just drive 10 hours. That's kind of sad and tearing." How did you feel about driving cars?
Driving is not my favorite activity. Um, so I'd rather be doing something else. I know that, like,
Let alone it's not safe.
yeah, but you could argue that automated driverless cars may not be safe either. But they are here, and I know Weibo. I think it's called Weibo. By Google, it's like autonomous taxis that run a lot like Uber, where you just call them on a phone, but they have no drivers in them. Those are happening in a lot of major cities. I know San Francisco.
Even in China.
Even in China. I know San Francisco, LA, Austin. I don't know where else, but they're here, and that future might be
I think
upon us.
in the future it might be a law that if you drive, you have to have AI on. Unless it's emergency or special occasion, you drive on your own, but AI has to drive. All cars need to be driven by AI because it's safer and you don't have to worry about DUI, do you?
You say it's safer, but I know that there's one problem that they've been considering is like if the car is about to get in an accident for whatever reason.
There's a moral issue there.
Yeah, there's moral issues. Does the car with only one person in it swerves to make sure that the car with 4 people in it survive and just that one person dies?
That's a really tough puzzle. I don't know the answer. And I think even for humans, it's difficult to decide. And our instinct is always to protect ourselves. But what if it's only you in your car, but the other car has a baby, has kids, the entire family with dogs? Then should you just let yourself die to protect them? It's really hard to think about it from a moral issues. What about the good things about driving cars? Like, do you enjoy driving as a form of freedom and independence? And when AI driving cars, do you feel less of a freedom?
The only reason I feel freedom and independence by driving a car is just because I can get up and leave because I've got a car in my driveway and I can just get up and leave whenever I want. So if that car was AI driven or just autonomous in general, I would feel free. I'd feel more free actually.
I feel in the future, like, yes, AI is driving cars, but does not mean we don't have the option to take over, right? Like, we can override AI in special occasions when necessary, when needed. But
Right.
I feel future generations will look at us and say, "Oh, those are the people in the past. They drove cars all on by themselves." Like, maybe some respect there. Imagine your future kids look at you and say, "Hey, Daddy, you drove car by yourself for like 20 years? Wow."
What was it? There was a show we saw or
Python in the show Python,
yeah.
when they shut down AI, they unplugged AI. Everybody go protesting and says, "We don't know how to drive a car. We can't go anywhere."
Or from what I recall, they said they haven't had to drive cars in decades.
Yeah, they
like,
forgot. Yeah,
which I think is going to be fascinating.
I can relate to
That's
that.
coming.
And another thing feel nostalgic in the future, which I personally really excited about, is the concept of going to work. Is you going to the office to work is a nostalgic thing. And your future kids will say, "Oh, Dad, you went to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday? Ew."
Yeah. It's kind of like, honestly, when you go back into the Industrial Revolution, you know what the average work week was? 70 hours.
70 hours for how many days? 6 days?
Five, probably 6, actually. So
Are
they
you
got
serious?
it. Yeah. Back during the Industrial Revolution.
Oh,
So,
that's sad.
and kids used to work too. It wasn't
Kids?
just, yes. So all that is
That's
now,
not legal now. That's not
yeah,
legal.
all that's nostalgic. So there might come a day where it's illegal to work more than 40 hours a week or
I think the concept of working on the jobs will be eliminated by AI and robots.
unless you want to work.
And you can always work if you want to, but you don't have to, like Elon Musk predicted. And I hope that's the future we're heading to.
I think that's a realistic point of view. You can work if you want to, but it might be more like volunteering or trading your time for...
I love that. I volunteer at dog shelters. That's something I don't need anybody to pay me. I just love doing it.
You also might just be like trading your time for supplies if you want to. I guess.
Maybe that's
hopefully
a
you're
form
not
of
forced to.
Maybe that's a form of abundance. You don't have to, but if you need certain resources and you can trade it,
And if you like doing the actual work.
like such as being creative, if you want to go write a poem as your ticket to a concert, or you paint something as a ticket to a friend's birthday party, then by all means do that. I'm a little jealous of future generations when they can look back and say, "Hey, we never worked a day in our entire life, but our older generations, they worked almost all their lives. Their entire life was wasted away in office."
Imagine a holiday that celebrated all those that had to work.
Oh, I want that holiday. What that should be, like a work holiday.
It's like Memorial Day or
A
Veterans
Memorial's
Day.
Day, like a job Memorial's Day.
Yeah, and it
Cele-
happens on a Monday, so you get a 3-day weekend. Although there's not such thing as a weekend
Celebrate
anymore.
all those older generations who slaved their lives 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday, at a job they may not even like.
That reminds me of Dr. Alan Thompson. I've talked about him a couple times on this podcast, but he's got a YouTube channel that you all should check out. But he's got he has a YouTube essay poem that is pretty awesome, and it was entitled, I think it was entitled something like "What About Those?" And it was like it was talking about this basically. It's like, oh, what about those that wanted to become a movie star but couldn't because of such and such and such and such. Like, how come? What do they get? This is they sacrificed their
Where
lives
is the
and years.
fairness
Yeah.
for them? It's not fair for
Yeah,
them.
it's a beautiful poem. You guys should all check it
And
out. And
I
he's
think you told me Cloud wrote it, right?
yeah, he wrote it with Claude. It's a beautiful poem, and he's a doctor of intelligence who used to study human intelligence, and now is focused on AI. So he's got a lot of interesting information. He's Australian. And he seems like a really good dude on camera. He's
Shout
really
out
chill.
to Dr.
Alan Thompson.
Alan Thompson. So next nostalgia subject I personally am really excited about is about movies. I feel in the future is nostalgic to think about in the past people go to movie theaters and watch movies on the screen. It's kind of vintage. Because here's what I predict in the future. Future movies are not one linear and on a screen like as 2D. Instead, it can be fully immersive, interactive experiences. So I think Sam Altman also says something similar to this. Movies will become more like a video games in the future, where you experience the story and maybe you can even alter the story. So you can become part of the storytelling instead of being passive, sitting here letting them tell the story. And also movie making will become much more, it will be revolutionary for Hollywood. It's not the traditional $1 billion budget, $1 million budget for a movie. Rather, it's a lot of can be made in Sora or clean video AIs and 11 Labs as their voice actors. So the concept of making movie changed. And it's changing right now as we speak. You have something to say because you were a director in Hollywood back in the day. How did you feel about the movie industry changing?
It's changing. It's going to change dramatically. It's going to change the entire system. I personally don't think human-made films are going away. There's just going to be less of them. Because if you think about it, human-made furniture has not gone away. There's just a lot less of it because it's just manufactured now. When's the last time you bought a human-made furniture? There's going to be human-made, man-made entertainment, but there's going to be a lot more man-made / AI entertainment.
And I feel AI movies will be more interactive. That's the thing I think traditional movies are lacking. We cannot change a story when we watch a movie. We cannot change who's playing those characters.
And
it's not up to us.
I think there's even going to be individualized. So
individualized entertainment on demand. That's how I see it.
Yeah, but what's weird about that, if you think about it, it'll be a film that only you can see and experience, and no one else sees and experiences the exact same
personalized experiences.
film. But then you're not sharing those moments together.
I guess you can choose to share or not.
It'll be like it'll be like a weird therapy session or something. You're watching a movie and it works in a way to help you and inspire you or move you in a certain direction, and that could be actually really great.
So yeah, I think in the future people, humans looking at us going to movie theater is definitely something nostalgic. And Cloud AI actually pointed out something I think is interesting. Cloud said, right now we have limited sensory engagement when watching a movie. We're just sitting here using our eyes and ears, and that's it. But Cloud predict in the future we have more all senses. Maybe we have a taste, smell, touches when watch a movie. It's fully immersive. I don't even know if that's still called a movie anymore. They gotta have a new name for that. What is that even?
VR entertainment. Um, I think that's the direction VR is headed in. And if you go to the right theater show, that's the direction some theater goes in. So it'll be interesting when it's like when you add a
So
digital aspect
I
to it.
feel in the future, watching a movie can be now we feel about reading a book. You can still read a book, a physical book, and people do that, but it's not the mainstream entertainment. The mainstream entertainment becomes social media, movies, TV shows, video games. And so in the future, when people look at us being, oh, in the past, humans' entertainment was watching movies, but now in the future.
And time is like, where do you spend your time is going to be a big question. Where are you paying attention?
Yeah, speaking of attention, next futuristic nostalgic is using cell phones. And I fully believe cell phones will be gone for sure. I think in the future, the communication will be wearables or even Neuralink is too invasive, but I envision something less invasive that we can have with us. Maybe it's nano robots. Maybe it's a bury a little SIM card under your wrist, something like that. But I really fully believe cell phones will be gone. It might be even gone in 5 years, 2 years. AR glasses can replace a lot of cell phone functions, and even Apple Watch gives us a preview of what it feels like that you don't have to hold a phone, everything on your watch. How do you feel about cell phones?
I don't. Well, I mean, I'm going to disagree with you. Eventually, they'll probably be gone, but they're going to be here for a while.
A while meaning like 5 years,
No,
three
like
years?
another 10 to 20.
I don't think so.
They need to be a power source, and texting is a big thing. Nobody,
I think texting.
very few people are going to walk around with with eyeglasses on talking.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing is about privacy. You pointed out because when I'm typing, I don't want to people when I'm talking to another person communicating, I prefer typing rather than talking, especially in public because I don't want other people to hear, right? But I think that can be solved by hologram. Say you have a wristband as your communication tool, then you can do hologram. No one can see it. And eye tracking. Vision Apple Vision Pro already has eye tracking. I imagine you could eye track typing
Oh,
in your AR glasses. So save your cell phone today. Maybe can sell as a vintage in the future. When people feel nostalgic about the past, you'd be like, "Hey, look, this is my last generation of iPhone who does not have AI in it." I need to save my phone. My phone does not have AI. In the future, can worth some money. Okay, let's move on to the next nostalgic thing: learning of foreign languages. I can speak for this one because English is my second language and it took me a while. It took me years to learn a second language. And when I was learning second language, I was asking myself why it has to be this difficult. Why I can't just have a chip in my head and then automatically know every language in the world. And I think this can be totally solved. Maybe already now, but it will become more and more advanced and smooth in the future, where you can go to any foreign country to speak to anybody. You just need a AI translator with you, and they probably have AI translator on them, and you can speak back and forth with no barrier. Or with Neuralink or any wearable technology, as soon as you speak, your sound already translated to another foreign language.
I thought I saw something floating around not too long ago where there was a company releasing headphones that just automatically translated. I thought it was Sony, but I don't quote me on that. And I mean, in today's day and age, who knows if it was even real?
That can be solved really soon. Did you pay
Probably
attention
already
to
is.
Twitter today? I opened Twitter today. It says now you can look at Twitter or X in any language you want. You want to look at the Chinese all the tweets will be automatically translated to the language you want. So, for example, I'm Chinese. If I set Twitter as Chinese and you post something, you post it in English, but on my Twitter, I will see it as Chinese automatically.
Really?
Yeah, I saw it today on Twitter.
Oh,
So we
that's
can,
new to me.
yeah,
Like, that's really cool, though.
That's really cool. So it broke the barrier of languages and foreign countries and bring us united. I love it.
I think it's really
It's a
good.
very necessary and practical tool to acquire a foreign language instantly.
It'll bring the world a lot closer. Like,
Well, yes.
the internet is already does bring us a lot closer, but when there's no language barriers, there will still be cultural barriers, though, and I don't think a lot of people realize that, but at least Americans don't.
So in the future, humans will feel nostalgic about past humans had to spend years to learn language. And maybe they don't see it as a bad thing. They see it as a romantic thing. They're like, oh, you guys, you had to like learn English for 10 years. Oh.
You still have to learn the language. It's not like you're still gonna have to learn to speak,
You need to learn your mother language.
communicate. Yeah.
If you could choose any language to be your first language, what would you choose?
Oh, that's a really good question. I want to say Tagalog just because.
You're half Filipino.
Yeah.
I would choose Chinese. Do you know why?
Why?
Chinese is the most difficult and complex language to learn. So if you get that nailed down as your first language, then other languages are easier to tackle.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. Like imagine a day and age where you're in another country and you're like, remember the day and age when we had to like try to interpret what they were saying and try to ask for the bathrooms, and we just had to communicate with sign language, but now like
Yeah, when I
something,
just came to
mimicking.
America as a foreigner, my English sucked. I couldn't say like fluent English at all. I did use sign language and I drew pictures on my notebook to show to people because I simply didn't know how to say it. Okay, let's move on to next talking points. I would like to talk about personal privacy and how this could be something nostalgic in the future. I feel nowadays it's still kind of possible to live off grid, but it becomes more and more difficult in the future. Like if you want to completely off grid, delete everything, delete all your data from internet, it's almost impossible. As soon as you're born at a hospital, they have your data.
They have information about you, at least. And I mean, honestly, we could argue that privacy is gone already. You know, in America, we all realize the government can read and know everything about us, and all these big tech companies are collecting data on us.
Yeah, if you pay attention to any social media, any app, anything you sign up for, they all have these terms and conditions. You have to click yes, I agree, and you are agreeing selling your data. Not selling, giving your data.
And we all know that, but yet we all keep on using social media and we all keep on using these apps. Like, how much do we actually care, honestly, about our own personal privacy?
That's why I think it's kind
At
of...
least digital privacy.
I'm just speaking my personal opinion, right? I don't want to, like, I could, like, offense people. But I think people take their data way too seriously. Don't take my data! You're taking my data, but it's not in your control anymore, sadly. Like, our data is out there. You have an email, you have a social media, no matter it's Facebook, YouTube, whatever, Twitter, what have you. Your data is out there. They know your gender, they know your age, they know what you like, you dislike. Every time you click a like button, it says something about you, and the algorithm catches that.
It does. And have you ever tried to manipulate the algorithm instead of the algorithm manipulating you, quote unquote. So many people are always afraid of giving an algorithm your data, but what if you had the algorithm work for you? Like we are looking to move, and I'm a big fan of like putting in your ideal home that you want to live in into the algorithm and letting the algorithm find it for you. Like maybe we don't get it because it's a little too expensive, or I don't know, wrong area, or whatever the situation may be, but the algorithm can help you.
I do feel algorithm surprises you sometimes. Algorithm is not just a bad guy. Algorithm introduces stuff into your life you didn't previously think of, but it makes sense for algorithm. And that's why algorithms say, hey, have you met the Derby one?
Yeah, just like suggests it to you. So, the internet and the world are both very large places. And so we don't really know what else is lurking and sitting out there. If you're looking for a brand new car or just even a used car and you're like, oh, I can generally only afford this, I would say start feeding the algorithm the car that you really want. And
Let algorithm work for you.
yeah, it may not bring it to you, but it also might.
So, do you think in the future humans will look back at us and go, oh, in the past you could have some kind of a privacy, but now there's no privacy anymore. I don't know any person in my life, whether it's family or friends or colleagues, I don't know anyone is able to live completely off grid, meaning you don't even have a cell phone. I don't know anyone. Maybe there are people there, like Amish people, maybe some people out there, they are living off grid, but it will become more and more difficult to do that.
I think the funny thing about that statement is I don't know anyone. It's like, yeah, if we knew them, they probably wouldn't be off grid. I think most people that are off grid just want to be left alone, period. They have a very tiny community, maybe a family, and that's about it. And they live out in the woods somewhere.
So in the future, basically, you can't have personal data privacy, right? So what does privacy really means for future humans?
I'll tell you the one thing I don't want. I think about this a lot, actually, strangely, is I don't want people to know all of my thoughts all the time.
You think in the future people can know other people's thoughts?
Yes,
How?
AI.
Oh,
AI will be able to read all minds.
that's invasive.
Incredibly invasive. I don't want my thoughts being shared like that. Like, I'm a pretty open person and I share a lot of things. Sometimes I even overshare, but I just don't want people to read my minds.
I don't think so, because if we are able to do that, the world is gonna be crazy, because a lot of people are thinking pretty dark stuff.
Yeah, or weird things that just aren't accepted by society. They might not even be dark. Or they might be brilliant things that aren't accepted by society that people don't understand.
Cool. Let's move on. I don't want to get too dark. So let's talk about the money. I think so now we have like physical money, which is cash on printed on a paper, which is a ridiculous idea, and we call it a physical currency. But I think in the very near future, in a digital economy, everything will be digital. So such as Bitcoin, NFT. So cash would become very nostalgic.
Fiat, yeah.
Do you think people would still use cash in the future?
I think its meaning might change.
Like a collectible.
Maybe. I do think there's an entire economy waiting to happen in just collectibles. And I'm not saying like selling them for money. I mean, that's a current economy that you could work in, but you're going to be able to trade collectibles for things. Like I think you're right. There's going to be a digital economy. Some people say that AI is going to have its own crypto and its own wallets that it will trade for and do deals in, and then go trade that for cash. or maybe resources. I think that in the future too, we're just gonna trade.
So you don't even think a Bitcoin or digital currency is needed in the future? We're
Not
just gonna trade?
Yeah, it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be needed and as important as cash or fiat is today. I'm a believer in crypto and I'm a believer in Bitcoin, especially Bitcoin, but I can foresee a place in society and the world where it just isn't needed. Maybe it's still desired and wanted and we utilize it for various
That
reasons.
that wouldn't be a good news for Bitcoin holders.
Yeah. But it would take a long time to get there.
And I know you are really passionate about NFT, and you told me you really see NFT will be the main currency in the future, especially in simulations like a VR world. Can you share your vision on that about NFT?
Well, when you think about an NFT, like get the thought process of a digital image out of your head because it's way more than that. That's just use case number one. It's actually a digital object. So if you are living in a simulation or you're visiting an incredibly realistic VR world or even just a VR world period and you're trading a digital object with somebody else, that is an NFT. And you may not need NFTs in that sense to survive in the quote unquote meat space, but in your digital home, because some people do have them, they have places they go hang out, it's like their place, you might trade a piece of furniture for a hat. And I know also the current trend in like VR and that world is what you're wearing, what your avatar wears and what it looks like. So you might trade pieces like that, or you might trade land, various other type of like digital resources, probably maybe even profiles or AIs or something that we don't even know yet. And there will also be a certain extent where you're trading NFTs that represent real world items like a house or a car or
I need some orientation when we live in that world. It's
yeah.
hard to navigate.
NFTs are confusing for a lot of people and they only know them as scams and digital images with monkeys drawn on them, but they are way, 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 way more than that. And it's hard to orientate somebody because there are no examples of what they actually are in science fiction. Where like AI, there's examples of what AI is in science fiction.
NFT
And that's
is
what
a
people...
new concept.
It's a brand new concept that was never created in sci-fi that I'm aware of. And I like... Because it's even more than just a digital object. It's even more than a representation of ownership. It's an entire new technology that hasn't been fully developed yet.
But I'm looking forward to seeing it really unfold,
Yeah.
which I think is coming with Web3, with AI. And you mentioned VR, so it's really interesting because you wrote down a talking point here. You said something that will future human would feel nostalgic about us is we only have one reality. Talk about that. Does that mean in the future humans have multiple realities?
I think so.
Tell us about that. That's so fascinating.
Multiple realities you can visit at will. I think one common phrase you and I have heard and that's been floating around is base reality. So in like the height of like NFTs, peak NFTs, people were calling it the meat space. So this meat space or the
Base reality.
We'll have certain needs and things, but you'll be able to go visit another simulation or another reality via VR, via, I don't know, something else. But if anybody's spent any time lately in VR, it's an interesting experience. At least it has been for me to like take off the
Meta Quest
Yeah, the
3.
Meta Quest 3 and like experience real life and like start to adjust because it feels so. I mean, it's different. It's a different type of reality. The imagination is much larger in VR, and I like it better. Um,
I prefer to call it simulation in the future because I don't want to wear goggles for long time period of time. But I would totally go to simulations for 8 to 10 hours a day if it's like wearable or nanobus operated Neuralink type of interaction, brain computer interactive. Then we will have multiple realities. And then future human will look at us and say, wow, remember back in the day when they just had one reality?
I mean, if you think about it, like I don't know how many people that are listening to this hop between social media platforms, but each social media platform is kind of its own reality. There's a big difference between Facebook and X. A big difference between X and TikTok.
YouTube,
YouTube and
Instagram,
YouTube and TikTok are very different.
very different.
So those are whole different like realities that you have to deal
But
with.
those
On the
realities
screen of
are
your phone.
not as immersive.
No,
they're
they're
just
not
on your
immersive.
phone. I'm thinking of immersive simulations in the future where you actually have different realities. I imagine myself maybe have a different identity. Maybe I have a different family in another reality. Maybe I'm a mushroom in another reality.
There is such thing as a VR family in VR chat. One of the trends. Actually, I've never been to VR chat, but I watch videos on VR chat. But one of the trends is like for a bunch of people to find others that they are friends with in VR, and they kind of form their own little like family, their own little clan. And it's interesting because some people are so immersed that way.
I definitely look forward to that multiple realities experience. How about let's talk about the healthcare system. Right now, I feel the healthcare system is pretty. It sucks. Okay, I remember you book your doctor appointment and they schedule you what 3 months,
Yeah.
3 months out of in the future. I think that will change rather rapidly soon, where AI doctor is going to do it in a second.
Yeah, like a health checkup is going to be a nostalgic thing. You're not going to need
Yes,
one.
yes,
Your watch will tell you everything you need to know.
exactly. And did you know? I think I saw the news just a few days ago. ChatGPT and the cloud and some other AI, they take the medical doctor exam. They all score over 97 or something like that, really high, where human doctors only score like 70s, 80s, 60s, way lower. Meaning, if you really want to trust data and you want to trust the numbers, trust AI doctors more than human doctors. I think for me, I prefer a human doctor being there, but I would just let the AI doctor do the same.
It'll be interesting. You got to. Okay, that's a whole different subject, but there's a few things I think to look out for in that. But overall, I would trust the data from AI versus human. I also do think there is something to be said about a human's bedside manner and a way a human can connect with you during critical medical situations that an AI cannot. So I still think there's going to be a need for a
Yeah,
doctor or
I
a
agree.
nurse. But I think their job definitions and what they're responsible for and how they use the data they get is going to change.
Another thing I'm really excited about is I fully believe future healthcare system is gonna be cheap AF.
I
It's
hope so.
probably is even free. If you want to do it now, you can already do it. I feed my AI my health data and give them the result of my lab results and everything. My AI knows my health conditions. My GPT even wrote that in its memory. It memorized what health conditions I have.
Imagine an Apple Watch that has AI in it and that can remember your health
And
conditions.
that's back resonated to the talking points we just talked about is you really don't have privacy and your personal data is out there. You lost that privacy. Once you enter digital world from born, your data is in the hospital. You are in this society.
You can
Unless
be
you are
tracked.
born in a mountain out of nowhere and you never touch technology, then you're off grid.
Yeah, if you don't have a birth certificate, a social security card, any of those things, but the moment you're born nowadays, you're in a system. You can be tracked, you can be organized.
You can't really escape. But hey, let's take advantage of this, right? Since we can't escape, we don't have a choice. Then we might as well take advantage.
Yeah.
Let AI do their job. Let AI give you fast responses, give you personal diagnosis, give you personal drugs to help you.
Give you personal entertainment.
There's no need to protect your data anymore. I feel.
There is to some extent, maybe, but I don't think. I think people see algorithms and data collection the wrong way. I mean, I get some of it, sure. I don't want. I have a lot of scammers call my phone. I hate that, and I have a lot of scammers like text me, and I hate that too. I wish and emails. I wish those things would go away, but I'm on social media a lot, and I've posted a lot through the last. I don't know. I was on Friendster. So, like, I'm an early adopter to social media, and nothing bad has ever happened to me.
Or I would say you view this from a positive point of view.
Yeah, and anytime I've had this argument with somebody, they always say the same thing. It's like, oh, you're going to share so much, and we're becoming a police state, and they're going to come get you. I'm like,
No one ever.
everybody's been saying that for the last 10 years. Has it happened? I don't know.
Yeah.
There is some extent, sure, we want some privacy, but you also have control over all these platforms nowadays, and you have control what you share online.
So we only have about 10 minutes left, and we prepared the best for the last. We want to talk about this concept of life is too short or death can be something nostalgic in the future. So in our current era, we are customized to this idea of a limited lifespan. When we're born, we were told life is too short. You live about 70 years, 80 years, and you die. And that concept like dominates our entire life. And it plays every single aspect in our life, such as how do you pursue education, how do you pursue love, how do you live your life, how do you pursue health, how do you pursue your hobby, how do you interact with people. Everything is when you have the deep seed of I'm going to die someday, it changes things. So phrases like life is too short, time is precious resonate deeply with us because we're actually aware of our
Morality.
morality. We're aware of our death. However,
Mortality.
however, as we approach what scientists call LEV, longevity escape velocity, this fundamental aspect of the human experience might become a nostalgia thing. So for those of you who haven't heard about the term LEV, it refers a hypothetical point at which life extension technologies advance so rapidly that for every year that passes, life extension increases by more than 1 year, meaning you grow 1 year older, but you gain 2 years back, and eventually you escape this longevity curve, and technically you can just keep on living. That's a hypothetical belief by a lot of scientists, including Ryan Kurzweil. Do you believe that?
I do. One thing that comes up for me when I hear this concept, and like, I love it, I'm all for it. I would love to live forever, or at least until I accidentally die. um, but there's one thing I want to say about this,
Please.
because right now, when you're born and as you grow up, you kind of learn a system based on schooling, based on society expectations. By your late 20s, it used to be early 20s, you should be married, and then you're on your way to buy a house and have kids. And the one thing that goes along with us on that is that we now live longer than we have in the past, but society has not adjusted to that.
How so?
Like, why, when we only used to live to 60 and now we live to like 75, 80, why are the expectations for us to, like, still the same, to get married and have children and buy a house in your 20s? Like, why? We're now living 15 years longer.
Yeah, let alone, I fully believe we're gonna achieve lifespan of 120 soon.
Yeah.
Then
So
are we still doing the same thing?
and like middle-aged at 120 will be considered 60. Think about that. Like, what are the expectations of how society works and adjusts need to adjust.
Adjust with it.
Like,
And
I
when
don't mind that you have to go to school the first 18 years, 22 years, get some education, get some basic grasp on the world to live the rest of it. That part of the system seems fine, but technically you even have longer to do that now. Like, so that's a
when
whole
you say-
societal adjustment.
When you say forever, I think that word scares a lot of people. And people say, I don't want to live forever, especially, I'm not that healthy, I'm not that young. But I think for me, I would like to change the concept to how about you decide your own lifespan?
Sure.
I think that's the ultimate freedom. We're not controlled by chemicals in our body and biological conditions. We're controlled by free will, if there's a free will.
So for those of you that have seen Futurama, you may know in that show that there are suicide booths in public. People can just walk in and commit suicide. So is that going to be, like, if we're choosing our own lifespans?
I think for people who believe death will make life better, then you just choose not to use any treatment, any anti-aging treatment. Then you go the quote-unquote natural way. You be natural. If you die in 70s, then so be it.
Right. But if we're choosing our own lifespan, then we get to choose when we die. And so therefore, the only way to really do that is to basically kill yourself.
What about just not using those
you can do that too.
Anti-aging treatment. So I would imagine in the future generations will look back at our era with fascination and pity and say, wow, they lived such short lives. Only 70, 80 years. I don't know how they feel about us. Did you know people in 1900 they live like 30 years old or something like that?
Yeah, I did.
Can you imagine you are born and you die at 30 years old? What did you do?
Middle age was 15.
What did you do? Your life is too short.
Expectations were different. The whole world, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, just extending to 120 changes everything, let alone the year 200, or
the phrase life is too short gives me anxiety. So if life is longer, let's just say, for example, 200 years, then I would pursue much more passions in my life, and I want to hone my skills. I want to be masters in a lot of areas, and I just get to experience more, and I desire to experience more in life. It's funny that before I knew the concept of longevity, escape velocity, I wanted to die in a sense. It's like, oh, death is inevitable. What's the point of living? I didn't feel meaning of life. And now I'm all about the meanings of life. I find the meanings everywhere. I'm exercising, I get myself healthier, I'm taking supplements, I'm eating well. I drink as less as possible. I don't eat sugar. I take care of myself because life suddenly is full of meaning, full of fun, full of potentials, full of everything. And I don't know if death did that to me. Death did not do that to me.
The idea of living forever inspired you.
Totally.
I think
And I
that's a
wonder if it inspired others or scared others.
I think that's a great place to wrap up.
Yeah. So thank you so much guys for listening. So our podcast is called Philosophy with AI, and I want to leave this podcast with one question, is that when you get to choose how long you would live, how long do you want to live?
Forever.